In this next skill, we will be solving systems of linear equations. A system of equations is when you have two equations that have two variables. Our goal is to find an x and a y that work in both equations, that are solutions to both equations. And to do this, we're going to use a method called elimination. And when you use the elimination method, you are going to add your two equations together, and you'll do it so that one of the variables cancels out. In level 1, it'll be set up so it's already ready for one of the variables to cancel. In level 2, you'll have to do a little more work, and then even more work in level 3. But in level 1, all you have to do is add your two equations together. You need to make sure that it's lined up so that your x's are first, your x terms come first, your y terms come second, then you have your equal sign, and then your regular number. So for all systems using the elimination method, it needs to be in that form. And then what we're going to do is add the the x terms together, and 2x and negative 2x make 0, so they cancel each other out. And so I'm just going to cross them out. And then when I add my y terms together, 5y plus negative 3y is 2y. Then I bring down my equal sign, and then I add my regular numbers or my constants together. Negative 4 plus 0 is negative 4. Then my next step is I have an equation that only has one variable now, and I can solve it by dividing both sides by 2, and I get y equals negative 2. This is my first part of the answer. That's the y value. And the next step is to find the x value. And to do that, I'm going to take the y value that I found, and I'm going to plug it in for the y in one of the equations. And you can use either the top equation or the bottom. I'm going to use the top equation. So I'm going to use the equation 2x plus 5y equals negative 4, and I'm going to replace y with negative 2. So I get 2x plus 5 times negative 2 equals negative 4. And now I'm going to solve for x. First, I'm going to simplify by multiplying 5 times negative 2, and I get 2x minus 10 equals negative 4. And then I would add 10 to both sides, and we get 2x equals 6. Divide both sides by 2, and we get x equals 3. So the x and y are the two answers, and we write our final answer as an ordered pair in xy form. X has to go first, 3, and then y is negative 2, and that's our answer. But you always want to check your answer, and to check your answer, you can plug those two numbers into the equations and make sure they worked. What I like to do, since I use the top equation to get my second variable, I check my answer in the bottom equation. So to check it, I'm going to use the equation negative 2x minus 3y equals 0, and I'm going to plug 3 in for x, so negative 2 times 3, minus, and then I'm going to plug in negative 2 for y, so negative 3 times negative 2, and I'm hoping that I get 0. So this is negative 6 plus 6, which does equal 0, so that means it worked. And my solution is valid. In the next example, we're going to do the same thing. We make sure that our x's are lined up, our y's are lined up, then the equal signs and the numbers, and then we just add the two equations together. So adding them together, this time the y's cancel out. And when I add the x's, x plus negative 3x gives us negative 2x. I bring down the equal sign, and then 19 plus negative 17 is 2. To solve for x, I divide both sides by negative 2, and we get x equals negative 1. Then I plug that x into one of the equations and solve for y. Again, I'm going to use the top equation. So I'm going to plug negative 1 in for x, and I get negative 1 minus 4y equals 19. And now I solve for y. So I add 1 to both sides, And we get negative 4y equals 20. Divide both sides by negative 4. And we get y equals negative 5. So my answer in xy pair form would be negative 1, comma, negative 5. Make sure x goes first and then y. And then we're going to check the answer. I'm going to use the second equation to check it. Negative 3 times negative 1. So I plugged negative 1 in for the x. And then plus 4. And then for y, I plug in negative 5. And I hope I get negative 17. So this gives us positive 3 minus 20, which does equal negative 17. So it worked. So the point negative 1, comma, negative 5 is the xy pair that works for both equations. This is also the point where these two lines intersect. So both of these equations in a graph represent two lines. So if you have two lines, the solution to a system of equations is the point where they intersect.